Angelina Jolie is one of Hollywood's brightest stars, admired, desired, and constantly sought after by photographers. But behind the red carpet and flashing cameras, what shadows has she silently carried? In this video, we explore the hidden chapters of Angelina Jolie's life, childhood traumas, emotional struggles, painful losses, and choices that have changed her forever. Does her strength stem from fame or from suffering? Join us as we step beyond the glamorous facade to uncover the tragedy and silent sorrow that have shaped the woman the world seems to know. Born on June 4, 1975, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, Angelina Jolie Voigt entered the world already surrounded by fame. Her father, Academy Award-winning actor Jon Voight, was at the height of his career, and her mother, Marceline Bertrand, had once pursued acting herself. From the outside, it appeared to be a privileged beginning in Beverly Hills. Yet by 1976, when Angelina was barely a year old, her parents had separated. The divorce was finalized in 1980, marking the first fracture in what would become a complicated childhood. Angelina and her older brother, James Haven, were primarily raised by their mother in Palisades, New York, before eventually returning to Los Angeles. In later interviews, Jolie has spoken respectfully but honestly about that period, describing financial struggles that contrasted sharply with public assumptions about a Hollywood family. Marceline stepped away from her own ambitions to focus on raising her children, and the absence of Jon Voight became a defining emotional undertone. Though Voight remained a public figure, the father-daughter relationship was strained for many years, with periods of silence that were widely reported in the early 2000s. Former classmates from Beverly Hills High School have recalled that Angelina often felt like an outsider. During the late 1980s, while attending the school in Los Angeles, she struggled with self-esteem and described feeling different from her peers. In interviews with Rolling Stone in 1999, she later revealed that her teenage years included episodes of depression and self-destructive behavior. At just 14, she briefly dropped out of school and began living with a boyfriend, an experience she has openly acknowledged as part of her search for identity and belonging. Another revealing chapter came during her time at the Lee Strasberg Theatre Institute in Los Angeles, where she studied acting as a teenager. Teachers noted her intensity and emotional depth, qualities that would later define her performances. Yet that same intensity sometimes masked personal turmoil. In retrospective interviews, Jolie has spoken about therapy sessions during her youth, a detail that, at the time, was not widely known. Those early sessions, she later suggested, were pivotal in helping her process feelings of abandonment and confusion. In 2002, in a symbolic and highly publicized decision, Angelina legally dropped Voight from her surname, becoming simply Angelina Jolie. Court documents filed in Los Angeles cited irreconcilable differences. While she did not elaborate extensively at the time, the move was widely interpreted as a personal boundary, reflecting years of unresolved tension. Only later, in interviews around 2011 and beyond, did Jolie indicate that reconciliation with her father had begun quietly, particularly after the birth of her children. Friends from her early modeling days in New York during the early 1990s described a young woman who oscillated between bold confidence and private vulnerability. She appeared in music videos for artists such as Lenny Kravitz and the Rolling Stones, projecting a rebellious image. However, insiders have since suggested that this image was also a shield, a way to reclaim control in a life that had often felt unstable. The passing of her mother, Marceline Bertrand, on January 27, 2007 in Los Angeles, after a long battle with ovarian cancer, reopened many of those early wounds. Though this loss occurred much later in Jolie's life, it cast new light on her childhood bond with her mother. In subsequent interviews, Angelina described Marceline as her emotional anchor. Observers noted that Jolie's humanitarian focus intensified after this period, suggesting that her mother's influence remained a guiding force. Looking back, certain early signs now seem more telling. Her gravitation toward complex, emotionally layered roles in films like Girl Interrupted, 1999, which earned her an Academy Award, mirrored themes of inner struggle and resilience. At the time, audiences praised her fearless performance. In hindsight, some commentators have pointed out how closely the role's emotional landscape echoed elements Jolie herself would later describe from her youth. By the mid-1990s, when she appeared in television films such as Gia, 1998, portraying the tragic life of model Gia Karangi, critics were struck by the raw authenticity she brought to the character. Jolie later acknowledged that immersing herself in such roles could be emotionally demanding. Industry insiders now recognize that her early career choices were not merely artistic risks, but reflections of someone unafraid to confront darkness, perhaps because she had known it firsthand. Throughout these formative years, the public saw flashes of rebellion, bold fashion statements, candid interviews, intense romantic relationships. Yet behind those headlines was a young woman navigating the lasting impact of divorce, strained family ties, and adolescent isolation. What seemed like unpredictability was, in many ways, the visible edge of deeper emotional currents. As more interviews surfaced over the years, particularly her candid 60 Minutes appearance in 2011, Jolie began connecting the dots between her childhood experiences and her adult resilience. She spoke of learning empathy from hardship, of understanding displacement and loss, themes that would later define her humanitarian work across Cambodia, Sierra Leone, and beyond. The narrative of Angelina Jolie's early life is therefore not one of scandal, but of complexity. It is a portrait shaped by separation in Los Angeles courtrooms in the late 1970s, by quiet apartments shared with her mother in New York, by therapy rooms and acting studios in California, and by the gradual, sometimes painful process of reconciliation. Each chapter reveals subtle clues, moments that only years later would be understood as the roots of her strength and vulnerability alike. As Angelina Jolie's professional reputation strengthened in the early 2000s, her personal life began unfolding under an increasingly intense spotlight. The relationships that followed would not only define tabloid headlines, but also reshape public perception of the woman behind the fame. On May 5, 2000, in Las Vegas, Nevada, Jolie married actor Billy Bob Thornton. The ceremony, reportedly spontaneous, took place shortly after they met on the set of Pushing Tin, 1999. Their relationship quickly became one of Hollywood's most talked about unions. Public appearances were marked by unconventional gestures, including the widely reported vials of blood they wore around their necks, a symbolic act both later described as youthful intensity rather than spectacle. At the time, the couple frequently spoke about their deep connection, yet industry observers noted their demanding filming schedules often kept them apart, with Thornton working across multiple US locations while Jolie was filming internationally. By 2002, subtle signs of distance emerged. Jolie began focusing more heavily on humanitarian travel, including extended stays in Cambodia after filming Lara Croft Tomb Raider 2001. Thornton remained primarily based in Los Angeles. In June 2002, Jolie adopted her first child, Maddox, from Battambang, Cambodia, a life-changing decision that further shifted her priorities. The couple separated quietly later that year, and their divorce was finalized on May 27, 2003, in Los Angeles. In subsequent interviews, both described the split respectfully, citing different life paths rather than scandal. What followed would become one of the most scrutinized chapters of Jolie's life. In 2004, she began filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a high-profile production shot primarily in Los Angeles and various California locations. Her co-star was Brad Pitt, then married to actress Jennifer Aniston. At the time, neither Jolie nor Pitt publicly acknowledged any romantic involvement. However, media speculation intensified in early 2005 when Pitt and Aniston announced their separation in January of that year. In April 2005, photographs published by international outlets showed Jolie, Pitt and Maddox together on a beach in Diani, Kenya. The images ignited global attention. Though Jolie consistently maintained in interviews that she would not pursue a relationship with a married man, she later clarified in a 2006 Vogue interview that her connection with Pitt developed gradually during filming after his separation. By January 2006, Jolie confirmed to People magazine that she was pregnant. The couple's daughter, Shiloh, was born on May 27, 2006 in Swakopmund, Namibia, a location chosen for privacy and security. The birth marked a shift in public tone. Discussions began moving away from controversy toward the couple's growing family. Over the following years, they expanded their household through both adoption and biological children, raising 6 children across homes in Los Angeles, New Orleans, and Chateau Miraval in Corrons, France. In 2012, after 7 years together, Jolie and Pitt announced their engagement. On August 23, 2014, they married in a private ceremony at Chateau Miraval. According to reports, their children participated actively in the ceremony, helping design Jolie's veil, which was embroidered with drawings created by the family. For many observers, the wedding symbolized stability after years of scrutiny, yet by September 2016, headlines shifted once more. Jolie filed for divorce in Los Angeles Superior Court on September 19, 2016, citing irreconcilable differences. The announcement followed an alleged private jet incident days earlier, which was later reviewed by authorities. After investigation, no charges were filed. Nonetheless, the event marked the beginning of a prolonged and highly publicized legal process. Court filings in 2017 and 2018 focused largely on custody arrangements. Jolie sought primary custody of the children, while Pitt requested joint custody. The proceedings unfolded across Los Angeles courtrooms, often sealed to protect the children's privacy. In April 2019, the couple was declared legally single, though financial and custody matters continued. By 2021, additional hearings addressed shared custody frameworks, with legal representatives on both sides issuing carefully worded public statements. Observers noted that during this period, Jolie reduced her acting commitments, instead prioritizing directing projects such as First They Killed My Father, 2017, filmed in Cambodia. Industry colleagues suggested her professional decisions reflected a desire for stability for her children during an emotionally demanding time. What makes this chapter particularly complex is the contrast between public narrative and private nuance. In interviews with outlets including The Guardian, 2017, and Vogue, 2020, Jolie spoke carefully about her separation, emphasizing her commitment to her children's well-being. She described the divorce as a period of personal growth, acknowledging pain without assigning blame. Certain earlier interviews, when revisited, now appear more revealing. In 2010, during Press for Salt, Jolie spoke about the challenges of balancing intense careers with family life. At the time, the comments seemed a routine. In hindsight, some observers interpret them as early indicators of strain. Throughout these years, the media often framed her story in extremes, from romantic idealization to dramatic collapse. Yet legal documents and verified interviews present a more measured portrait. Two high-profile individuals navigating complex emotional and logistical realities under global attention. The evolution of these relationships, from whirlwind romance in Las Vegas to global partnership to a courtroom process stretching across nearly a decade, forms a continuous thread in Jolie's life story. It is a chapter marked not by spectacle alone, but by decisions made in airports, film sets, embassies, and family homes across continents. Each stage left visible imprints, shaping not only her public image, but also the quieter, more private resilience she has continued to cultivate. While the legal proceedings of her separation were unfolding in Los Angeles courtrooms, another, far more private battle had already begun years earlier, one that would redefine Angelina Jolie's relationship with her own body and mortality. In early 2013, after months of confidential medical consultations in California, Jolie made a decision that stunned the world. On May 14, 2013, she published a deeply personal op-ed in the New York Times titled "My Medical Choice." In it, she revealed that she had undergone a preventive double mastectomy at the Pink Lotus Breast Center in Beverly Hills. The surgery, completed in stages between February 2nd and April 27th, 2013, was prompted by genetic testing that showed she carried a BRCA1 mutation, significantly increasing her lifetime risk of breast and ovarian cancer. Medical experts at the time confirmed that women with BRCA1 mutations can face up to an 87% risk of developing breast cancer and up to a 50% risk of ovarian cancer. Jolie disclosed that her own estimated breast cancer risk had been reduced from 87% to under 5% following the procedure. She wrote candidly about her mother, Marceline Bertrand, who had battled ovarian cancer for nearly a decade before passing away in 2007 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. The memory of sitting beside her mother during chemotherapy sessions, she explained, influenced her determination to take preventive action. What the public had not known during those months was that Jolie continued filming and attending public events while quietly undergoing medical procedures. In April 2013, just weeks before publishing her op-ed, she appeared composed and confident at the Women in the World Summit in New York City. Observers later noted that beneath the elegance was a woman recovering from reconstructive surgery, a detail only revealed after her article went public. The response was immediate and global. Health organizations reported what became known as the Angelina effect, a documented surge in genetic testing inquiries worldwide. Clinics in the United States, the United Kingdom and Australia reported significant increases in women seeking BRCA screenings within months of her disclosure. Medical journals later cited the event as a pivotal moment in public health awareness. Yet the story did not end there. In March 2015, Jolie again turned to the New York Times to share another deeply personal update in an op-ed titled "Diary of a Surgery," published on March 24, 2015. She revealed that she had undergone a preventive salpingo oophorectomy, the removal of her ovaries and fallopian tubes. The procedure took place at a Los Angeles hospital after doctors detected concerning markers during routine blood tests. Though the results ultimately showed no cancer, the decision was made due to her elevated genetic risk. The second surgery carried profound implications. It induced surgical menopause at the age of 39. In interviews that followed, Jolie spoke carefully about the emotional and physical adjustments required, including hormone replacement therapy and the psychological impact of entering menopause earlier than expected. In a 2015 interview with NBC's Today Show, she emphasized that her choice was deeply personal and not a universal recommendation, encouraging women instead to seek individualized medical advice. Colleagues who worked with her during this period later described her professionalism as unwavering. In 2014, she directed and produced Unbroken, with filming taking place in Australia. Production schedules overlapped with her medical consultations, yet there were no public indications of her internal concerns. Insiders have since suggested that only a small circle of family members and medical professionals were aware of the full scope of her decisions at the time. Looking back, certain earlier moments now appear layered with deeper meaning. In interviews prior to 2013, Jolie often spoke about the fear of not being present for her children. At the time, such comments were interpreted broadly as reflections of her mother's passing. Only later did audiences understand that genetic knowledge had already reshaped her long-term outlook. The financial aspect of genetic testing also became part of public discourse. Jolie's openness highlighted disparities in access to preventive healthcare. Advocacy groups pointed out that while her resources allowed for immediate intervention at leading medical centers in Beverly Hills, many women worldwide lacked similar options. Jolie herself acknowledged this in subsequent interviews, expressing hope that transparency might encourage broader healthcare reforms. Throughout 2016 and beyond, as she navigated both divorce proceedings and post-surgical recovery, Jolie maintained a relatively measured public presence. Appearances at United Nations events and film premieres were carefully paced. Observers noted a quieter wardrobe palette, a leaner physical frame, and a more reflective tone in interviews. Subtle indicators, perhaps, of a woman recalibrating her life after confronting hereditary risk head-on. Medical professionals later credited her with helping normalize conversations around genetic testing and preventive surgery. Academic studies published in 2016 and 2017 examined the measurable spike in BRCA awareness following her disclosures. Few celebrities had ever used personal health decisions as a public educational platform with such tangible global effect. Behind the headlines, however, was a deeply human dimension. A daughter shaped by watching her mother's prolonged illness, a mother determined to remain present for her 6 children, and a woman willing to reveal vulnerability in a culture that often equates beauty with invincibility. The operating rooms of Los Angeles hospitals, the private recovery spaces away from cameras, and the quiet family conversations that preceded each decision formed an invisible chapter unfolding parallel to her public life. As these medical milestones intertwined with her ongoing legal and professional responsibilities, they added another layer to an already complex narrative, one defined not only by external scrutiny, but by deliberate, preventative choices made in the face of inherited uncertainty. Emerging from years marked by personal trials and major medical decisions, Angelina Jolie gradually redirected the public narrative toward purpose and global engagement. While earlier chapters of her life had unfolded under intense scrutiny, the following years revealed a different rhythm, one defined by diplomacy, authorship, and a deliberate recalibration of fame. Her humanitarian involvement, which began in 2001 during filming in Cambodia, evolved into long-term institutional commitment. In August 2012, she was appointed Special Envoy to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, formalizing more than a decade of field missions. Between 2012 and 2022, she undertook over 60 missions to countries including Jordan, Iraq, Sierra Leone, and Colombia. In 2015, she addressed the United Nations Security Council in New York, advocating stronger protections for women in conflict zones. Observers noted her shift from celebrity advocate to policy-focused participant, a transition marked by prepared briefings, closed-door diplomatic meetings, and collaboration with international legal experts. In June 2014, she co-chaired the Global Summit to End Sexual Violence in Conflict in London, alongside then UK Foreign Secretary William Hague. Held at Excel London, the summit brought representatives from more than 100 countries. The event underscored her growing credibility in international forums, a credibility built not on publicity, but on repeated field presence. Humanitarian workers who traveled with her described early morning refugee camp visits in Atari, Jordan, and extended private conversations with displaced families, moments rarely captured fully by cameras. Parallel to this global advocacy, Jolie continued shaping her creative career with projects reflecting personal convictions. In 2017, she directed First They Killed My Father, filmed on location in Cambodia and based on the memoir by Laung Ung. The production employed predominantly Cambodian cast and crew members. Industry analysts viewed the film not merely as a directorial project, but as an extension of her long-standing connection to the country, where she had adopted her eldest son in 2002, and where she later established the Maddox Jolie Pitt Foundation. Her return to large-scale acting roles came with Disney's Maleficent, 2014, shot primarily at Pinewood Studios in the United Kingdom. The film reimagined a classic antagonist as a complex, protective maternal figure, a thematic choice that resonated with Jolie's own evolving identity. In press interviews during the film's London premiere in May 2014, she spoke about the symbolism of strength coexisting with vulnerability. The sequel, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, 2019, filmed across the UK and Italy, saw her balancing production schedules with court hearings in Los Angeles, a reality she navigated discreetly. Observers also noted a quieter transformation within her family life. By 2018, Jolie had relocated with her children to a historic estate in Los Feliz, Los Angeles. The home, once owned by filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille, provided both privacy and proximity to school and work commitments. Interviews from that period revealed a mother emphasizing routine, school drop-offs, shared dinners, and travel coordinated around academic calendars. In 2019, her eldest son Maddox began studying at Yonsei University in Seoul, South Korea, marking a milestone frequently described by Jolie as both proud and bittersweet. Professionally, she expanded into new creative territories. In 2021, she joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Eternals, directed by Chloe Zhao, and filmed at locations including Pinewood Studios and the Canary Islands. The role introduced her to a new generation of audiences, yet her promotional interviews often circled back to themes of resilience and unity rather than spectacle. In December 2022, Jolie concluded her formal role as Special Envoy with UNHCR, though she stated publicly that her commitment to humanitarian work would continue independently. The announcement reflected an evolution rather than a retreat. She emphasized her desire to engage more directly with grassroots organizations, signaling a shift toward flexible advocacy beyond institutional frameworks. Certain earlier remarks now appear prescient. In a 2020 Vogue interview conducted at her Los Feliz home, Jolie described the past few years as a period of healing. She referenced rediscovering her voice, not in defiance but in clarity. Observers interpreted this as acknowledgement of cumulative trials, family court proceedings, health interventions, and the ongoing responsibility of raising 6 children in the public eye. Throughout these transitions, public appearances became more measured. At red carpets in Rome, Los Angeles, and London between 2021 and 2023, she was often accompanied by one or more of her children. Fashion analysts noted her choice to recycle and repurpose previous gowns, aligning with sustainability values rather than opulence. These decisions, subtle yet symbolic, reinforced a narrative of intentional living. Financial disclosures and industry reports consistently ranked her among Hollywood's highest-paid actresses during peak years. Yet recent ventures suggest a diversification beyond acting. In 2023, she launched Atelier Jolie in New York City, a creative collective and fashion initiative focused on sustainability and collaboration with refugee artisans. Located at 57 Great Jones Street, the historic building once associated with artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, the space was renovated with an emphasis on preservation rather than luxury. The project was framed as an extension of her advocacy, merging creativity with economic opportunity for displaced communities. Colleagues describe a working style marked by preparation and discretion. Directors and producers have commented on her focus during set hours and her insistence on maintaining a protective boundary around her children's privacy. While headlines often oscillated between admiration and speculation, those within professional circles frequently emphasize steadiness rather than volatility. Across continents, from refugee camps in the Middle East to film studios in England, from diplomatic halls in New York to design workshops in Manhattan, Jolie's post-crisis years reveal continuity rather than fragmentation. Each endeavor appears interlinked: advocacy informing artistry, motherhood influencing leadership, health decisions deepening empathy. The arc that once centered on turbulence gradually gives way to sustained engagement. Public speeches become more policy-oriented, film roles more reflective, entrepreneurial efforts more community-driven. The visible narrative shifts from reaction to intention, from surviving scrutiny to shaping platforms deliberately. In these evolving chapters, resilience is no longer reactive but embedded, a steady current guiding her forward through each new undertaking. Behind the fame, the awards, and the powerful public image, the journey of Angelina Jolie is ultimately the story of a woman who has faced loss, fear, scrutiny, and uncertainty, yet chose courage again and again. When we look beyond headlines, we see not just a global icon, but a daughter shaped by early separation, a mother determined to protect her children, and a human being who confronted genetic risk with transparency so others could learn from it. It is easy to judge from a distance. It is harder and far more meaningful to understand. Every public figure carries private battles we may never fully see. Angelina's story reminds us that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to move forward despite it. It is choosing responsibility over resentment. It is transforming personal tragedy into advocacy that benefits millions. Her openness about preventive surgery sparked global conversations about women's health. Her humanitarian missions brought attention to displaced families often forgotten by the world. Her creative work continues to explore themes of resilience, motherhood, and redemption. These are not the actions of someone defined by scandal. They are the choices of someone determined to give meaning to hardship. As viewers, we have a choice too. We can consume stories as entertainment, or we can listen with empathy. We can criticize, or we can reflect. If this story moved you, let it be a reminder to approach others, famous or not, with compassion. Everyone you meet may be fighting a battle you cannot see. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told with balance and humanity, please support the channel. Like this video to help more people discover a deeper perspective. Share it with someone who values thoughtful storytelling, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey where we look beyond the surface and uncover the human truth behind public lives. Because in the end, the greatest lesson from Angelina Jolie's path is this: pain does not have to define us, but how we respond to it absolutely can.